Sure is dark here, isn't it? Hello, welcome to 757 Spy Flight on YouTube, and yes, indeed, it is a little dark. We are at Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and hello, I'm Dave. I do the Spy Flight over on Twitch TV. Boy, did we have a big weekend last weekend. It was the Cross the Pond flight. Over 2,000 people got on VATSIM, flew from one side of the Atlantic to the other. And if you're one of the people that understands why flight simmers do that, then you found a good video here on YouTube. This is a series that I usually do on Mondays. It's cold and dark, complete flights of some of the most popular airplanes out here. And today we're focusing on the CRJ from Aerosoft. The CRJ, this is the 700 series. But as we take a look over here, this is what we're going to do. This is the CRJ. I'm actually flying the 550 version here. And the 550 is sort of like a really nice interior. So it's a little more spread out. So if you're over 6 feet tall like I am, it's a little more comfortable in the real world. In the sim world, if you are new to flight simulators and you just bought Microsoft Flight Simulator and you're doing the flying lessons and you're ready to start doing jets and stuff, this is not a bad airplane to go and start doing jets in. There are others that are really good. The CJR-700 from working title, that is a great modification too. But if you do want to jump into a payware sort of commercial jet, these are the airplanes that the real world pilots start in too. So this is a great starter first jet. Add-ons that I'm going to use today: Sim Toolkit Pro and SimBrief with Navigraph charts and data. The airports that I have for today's flight are both payware airports, both Jackson Hole and also Denver. I'm also using a little application called Pushback Helper, which is a great way to do pushback. So what we're doing today is flying a real world route today. We're flying in real weather and real time. And this is sort of like an airline operation. So, one of the things with flight simulators is simulating and learning about airline ops. If you happen to be an av geek and you like getting on airplanes and going places and, you don't get to do it every day, like I certainly don't. So this is sort of the next best thing to doing that. So this is what happens. Up 7 a.m. in the morning, all the little commuter jets start coming into the big hubs to get all the passengers ready to go for big 9 a.m. departures to, far-flung places around the globe. The other thing I was going to mention here is how to find parking gates. If you're new to VATSIM and you've just done like your first flight or something, and you've had full ATC and you just got off the runway and they're saying something along the lines of, you just contacted ground off the runway and they say the words, say parking. It's really busy. There's a whole bunch of other airplanes out there and they say parking. What do they mean? Well, what they really would like you to do is tell them, do you have a parking gate at the airport that you want to use? And you're going like, I just finished my flight. What do I do? So as a part of your flight planning process, one of the things to do is go to a website sort of like this one. Okay, this is the one I use, FlightAware. You could also use Flight Radar 24. And most often than not, you can go and search a real world flight like we're doing today. And you can see that there's going to be gate information. So the flight that I'm kind of shadowing today left gate 8, and it's going to go to gate B43. So that's a way that you can already know where it is that you're going to go and do and get gate information. If you've done a couple of these flights with me before, you've probably seen this. This is a little notepad that I have. It's called the Flight Strip. And I've been using this as my way of keeping notes together for spy flights for a very long time now, for a couple of years. And if you look in the description below, you'll see that I've cut and pasted the top 5 lines of this. So this is something you can cut and paste into your notepad too and start using it. So, Jackson Hole to Denver, right along the top there. I've got the number of passengers, 0 fuel weight, flight schedule. Yeah, in some cases, flight schedule is important, especially if you're going to be doing something like cross the pond, because you have to depart on time because there's so many airplanes. But you can also see right here on about the 5th or 6th line here, it says gates. And you can see I've written gate 8 and B46. So if I'm on VATSIM, this is a place where I know, and it just takes, less than 30 seconds to figure out gates. Now, that being said, not all airports and countries report gates. Some of them don't. In most cases, you're going to be able to find something, but that's just one little thing to keep in the back of your mind. So let's see here. That's where you find parking gates. What are we doing today? Well, this is YouTube, and one of the cool parts about YouTube is it's not a live stream, so you can stop the video and you can go and fire up your copy of Microsoft Flight Simulator and a CRJ and fly along with me. I try to go a little bit slower in terms of setting up the cockpit on these YouTube videos so you can follow along. If you don't have Microsoft Flight Simulator, I will tell you there is a really nice CRJ that you can get, and that one is over on it's on X-Plane, and that might be something that maybe you'd like to try and fly along too. Most of the buttons are going to be about the same. The other cool part about this video is you can pause and restart the video. You can also rewind a little bit, so if I'm talking too fast, you can go and check out which button I pushed. Another thing that I like to suggest is if you're going to do this video with me in a couple of days or something, try and do the same airplane but do it out of your hometown airport, because that way you're going to recognize some of your landmarks, you're going to recognize the runways, and that just kind of, helps you remember some of the things that maybe you picked up here. And then finally, I always like to do the invitation. Come on over and join us on the Spy Flight. We're flying pretty much every day, Tuesday through Sundays at 1900 Zulu. On daylight savings time, that is 3 o'clock Eastern time in the United States. Now, the time I'm recording this, times are changing in Europe, times are changing in the US, but as you take a look at things like SimToolkit Pro and Volanta, they all have a Zulu time. So one of the things that you can go and do is you can do Zulu time. And if you do, I'm using SimToolkit Pro down here, and here at the very bottom where my pointer is, there is the Zulu clock. And so it says it is 1323 Zulu. So that's the way, what that clock there, when that says 1900, you can count on a Spy Flight over on Twitch. And I think that's probably about it. It's time for us to start doing flying things. We'll turn up the sound on the flight simulator. The only other thing that I've really done is I've gone over and I've got what I call the stack of charts. So back in the old days, pilots used to stack up their paper charts, in the order that they needed them. Well, so here in the electronic world, we've got a chart here, and this is our Jackson Hole, Wyoming runway chart. Jackson Hole is taking off on the ones right now, so 1 is our departure chart. Coming into Denver, we're going to be doing the Flatiron arrival, doing the Mary Jane transition into Flatiron, and then transitioning out at Tichenor, and that's for runway 16. So 16 right, which is what they're landing in the real world at Denver International Airport. So 16 right. We're not going to do a whole lot of braking on this one. So we can either get off at Delta 8 or Delta 5. Delta 5's a little faster, because then it's the Whiskey Bravo taxiway right into the Bravo concourse. And then we already know that we're going to B46, so kind of look over here, B46. Ah, there it is. So we're going to be on the south side of the Bravo concourse, and there's B46. That's where the real-world airplane is going to be going. So now we know our stack of charts. One of the other things that I really like to do is, even though it's a pretty simple airport, one of the things I do is I use the flight following thing option that you have in Navigraph and other flight following too. Especially on the ground, it just makes your day so much easier to be able to do that. It makes your day an awful lot easier to be able to go and find your way in the airport. Ground operations can be a little bit more confusing, and so if all you have to do is look over at your chart and say, yeah, I'm right by the Alpha 2 taxiway. So that's the reason why I do that. And that is probably the end of the yammering. Now it's time to go ahead and start doing some airplane things. And some airplanes, there's one over on X-Plane. You can actually open the door outside the airplane. That's not something you can do in Microsoft Flight Simulator yet, but that's something that's, if you want a little more immersion, that's kind of nice. So maybe a developer's watching and will start putting something like that out there. We'll crawl into the best seat in the house. Here we are. One of the things that I like to suggest before you do a flight is, you know how sometimes USB controllers can disconnect? So go ahead and just move your controls around. See if you can move your rudder pedals down there. That's kind of hard to see. We can go ahead and we can move the throttles. I do know the throttles work, but right now they're locked down here. They're locked down, so you could go ahead and lift them up, move them there. Yeah, our throttle works. And so that's the fuel cutoff on this airplane. Okay, ready to go? So step one, come on over here and go to the electronic flight bag and click it once, and then that's going to turn it on. And so you get a little bit of a nice little checklist here. This one is just sort of like follow along checklist. It's not electronic in terms of once you do something, it checks it off. So that would be kind of a nice thing for them to add. But the first thing I do is go to the aircraft. My chocks are in place. I'm going to open my passenger door and my cargo doors. I'm going to call a ground power unit. And you can see my passenger door has opened there. The big ramp that you see here, this is sort of the rampway that they have set up so that passengers don't have to climb steps. So I don't think that they move here, but that's what they use there. So we're just going to use the little stairway. You can also see the ground power cart as it goes and pulls itself right in front of you. I mean, that's sort of like really in your face on that. And then it kind of moves around a little bit and drives here and there. But now we've got ground power, and so we're all ready to go. Back into the cockpit we go. So everything's looking good here. Next thing we're going to do is go and turn power on the airplane. And the way we do that is you look up here, and I've got a couple of quick views set up, and we're going to do the battery. There's the battery. Ground power is available. We're going to punch in ground power. We're going to, on our way down, go and turn on the nav lights. Let's also go over here to the right side, and we're going to turn up the overhead backlighting. So we're going to pop that on a little bit, and I'm going to turn the dome light on too. I'm also going to turn on the logo light because you know what? We don't want to get a nasty memo from marketing. Okay, and as you can see, the sun is starting to come up. This should be a really good flight. And by the way, sunrise and sunset is really one of the best times to fly in Flight Simulator. Okay, as our airplane comes to life, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to look down here and look off to the left. And it's kind of hard to see, but we're going to turn up the floodlight a little bit here. I'm also going to turn up the integrated lighting. That's the backlighting for all the instruments. Just makes it so much easier to see. And now you're starting to see that things are starting to light up a bit here. Let's also go down and get the armrest out of the way. And we're going to do the same thing here. Integrated lighting and a couple of clicks of floodlighting here. And now all of a sudden we're getting pretty good. We can start to see things here in the sim cockpit. I'm going to also cancel the warning and the alert there, and everything's looking good. So let's come on down here to the flight management system, and we can check our active data navigation database. Okay, timeout, coffee. It is an early morning flight. Didn't have enough coffee, clearly. October through 3 November, so it's almost Navigraph Day, almost time for us to get our latest nav data. But we can go ahead and do the position init, and we are at KJAC, Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Now you do, sometimes you can put in gate information, and sometimes the airplane knows it, sometimes it doesn't. So gate information it doesn't know. So if that's the case, just go down here and you see where the next page is. I usually will grab a GNSS, a GPS position, put it in the scratch pad, go back to page 1, and that's going to be my position set. So that's how it is that I can get my exact gate. The other thing that you could do is if you really wanted to, you could come down here to your charts. We're here at gate 8, and gate 8 and 9, there are parking spot navigation coordinates. And you could, plug those in manually if you would really like a little bit of old school immersion. So we got that there. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to come down here. Now, you remember I checked to see that my chocks were in place. So chocks are in place. So I'm going to release my parking brake just to get that out of the way. Chocks are holding the airplane, and we're going to go and do the IRSs. Whoops. Sometimes that gets a little funky. So there's two of them here, IRS 1 and IRS 2. Just turn those to nav. Now, over if you're flying with me on the X-plane airplane, CRJ in X-plane, the last time I flew that, which was a while ago, it did not have those IRS switches down there. So if you're saying, wait a minute, where are the IRS switches? I guess not all CRJs had them. Okay, so our airplane's slowly coming to life here. And let's go ahead and start. I'm also do the recirculating fan. So that just gets sort of the air blowing around the airplane just a little bit. Now then, loading the airplane. This one does not have a load the passengers thing, so there's no animations. There's two ways that you can do this. You can add passengers, and you can add cargo, and you can add fuel individually. So what I generally like to do, though, is I go and I click the top one to just change to 0 fuel weight. So there's two different ways that you can do that. And if you look over on your flight plan, there's two numbers that we need here. We need the 0 fuel weight right there, which is 24.514. I'm doing all of this in kgs. And then my fuel here in Jackson is 3.311. So those are the, that's our 0 fuel weight and center of gravity. So come on over to this, and we're going to go and delete all of these, and 0 fuel weight is 24514. So 24514. 24514 and enter. Come on down here to the fuel, and that's 3311. So delete those, 3311, enter. Our airplane is loaded. Come on down here, set payload in the simulator. Hey, that's all we got to do. And it's sort of like, okay, our airplane's loaded. And that's all you have to do in this. It really makes loading this airplane quick. Now, if you wanted to, you could also go to page 3 if you're doing the default flight plan, which is the Lido style of flight plan. And you can come down here and you could put in passengers. 49 passengers. You could put in a cargo of 1.3 kgs. So you can also, there's 3.3 times. So you can do it that way too if you want to go and put those numbers in. That's just faster for me. All right, everything's looking good here. We've got air conditioning going. Let's also go ahead, and since fuel is aboard, I'm going to go ahead and hit the on button for APU. So look over here. It says APU door is closed. Then it says the APU door is open. That's the little door that flops up in the back of the airplane here to allow air into the APU. And you can kind of see it. It's dark there, but there's the little APU inlet door. So now that we've got that, we can come up here and we're going to go ahead and hit start. And if you go outside the airplane, you'll even hear the start sounds. If you're new to flight sim and airplanes and stuff, APU stands for Auxiliary Power Unit. That is a small little jet engine in the back of the airplane. And that basically supplies electricity. It's a generator. It also supplies what's called pneumatic pressure. And that's basically the air that's running through all of the air ducts. When you're sitting on the ground, it provides air conditioning and heating, and it's also used to start the engines. And some APUs, I believe, also supply hydraulic power. So like power steering, stuff like that. Okay, so now we have an APU and it's up and running, and so that's good too. I've also forgotten to turn on what's called the 3A switch on the hydraulic panel. So the 3A switch goes on too. All right, everything's looking good. We're also going to go over here to no smoking and turn that on because we're going to be fueling the airplane. All right, let's go ahead and do the flight plan. So F plan, origin, we are at KJAC, so Jackson Hole, Wyoming, KJAC, and we're going to KDEN, Denver, just like the real airplane. Our alternate is Colorado Springs, KCOS, COS, alternate goes in there. Our flight number is United Airlines, Flight 441. Actually, it's SkyWest is, I believe, what's doing the commuter flight today. And that's all I'm going to pop in here. Now, there are some, you can do a little bit of importing routes and things like that through the SimBrief downloader. You're going to see that the route today is so short, might as well just put it in. So there we go. Denver, Colorado Springs, all that looks good. And so let's go ahead and hit execute. Now I'm going to go to the legs page. And our first leg is KICNE. Yep, KICNE off the flight plan. ICNE. After KICNE, it's OCS. So OCS is a VOR. And after that, it's Mary Jane, MJANE. MJANE. Named after a Colorado ski resort, Mary Jane. That's it. There's our flight plan. See? Execute that, and it's all good. Cool. So things are slowly coming to life on the airplane here. Now then, we can't move the airplane because it's still... Oh, actually, I think I changed some settings here. Go to options. Oh, yeah, I had instant. Okay, so I had an instant IRS align time. I'm going to put that back over to original. It should take about 7 minutes. Should take about 7 minutes on that. Okay, we're still aligned though, but I usually go with that. I was going to say, wait a minute. 7 minutes, it should say aligning. Okay, well, good. That means we get to get out of the gate a little sooner. Departure and arrival. So departure and arrival, we're going to go here. We're doing runway 1, and we are not doing any stars going out today. So just off of runway 1 and then direct to KICNE, Kissen, I guess. So back to departure and arrival, our arrival into Denver. Right now, we know we're going to be getting 16 right. So we're going to put in 16 right. We may get 16 left though, perhaps, so just knowing what the runways are at the bigger airports kind of helps you out. Flatiron arrival, and that's going to be via Mary Jane. And then page 2 is going to be the Tichenor transition. Wow, a lot of stuff that I just went through there. How did I know that? So the way that I knew that is I knew that this was our arrival. There's the Flatiron arrival. We're coming in. A transition into the arrival is Mary Jane, and our transition out is Tichenor. And I knew that also by looking over here at my chart, and I saw, oh, approach transitions into the runway we're landing on. There's Tichenor. So that is my transition in and my transition out. And so that's how it is that I knew that. And I did that. I knew that, A, because I've done this before, but you'll know that because if you get your stack of charts here and you just take a look at your star and your arrival runways and things, that's how it is that you're going to know all of that. All right, so that looks really good. And we'll execute this. So that's done. Go back to legs, runway, and then direct to Kissen, KIC, I don't know, OCS, Mary Jane. Mary Jane goes into our arrival, Flatiron, Eldo. There's Tichenor, Skimjay, and CU, Shred. And this takes us right into runway 16 and missed approach. Bruise is where we're going to hold on our missed approach. The flight plan is absolutely done. So that's really cool. Nicely done there. Okay, passengers are aboard and in their seats. We need to do performance initialization now. First thing to do is your cruise altitude, and today's cruise altitude is 39,000 feet. Oh, and on this one, it wants the other 2 zeros. You don't just put in FL. Maybe if you type in FL 390, that's how it works. Now, the other number it wants here is alternate cruise altitude. So if you're using the Lido style of charts here, that's going to be on page 2. Colorado Springs and flight level 170. Let's do a test here. Let's see if I can learn something today. FL 170. Let's see if it wants that. Oh, okay. It seemed to like that one. So you can put in those. That's all you need to do. Now the next thing to do is go over to the electronic flight bag, go to performance, come on down here, and the option down here is copy perf init data to FMS. click that one, and then come on over here, and it's already done your V speeds, and this sets the bugs. You can do flaps 8 or flaps 20. You can do runway conditions, and your bugs are now set. And you also come back over here and look and see, oh, look at this. It's all set up here. How cool is that? Okay, let's look at page 2. I don't usually do this. So these are climb winds. So let's see, winds for climb. I think that that's stuff that I'm going to get. And this is not something that I do very well. Let's see, winds for climb. Okay, it gives us all sorts of numbers. You know what? That's a rabbit hole I'm not going to jump down today. I'm going to be a bad pilot and skip that. So let's go to page 3 and see what's there. There's fuel reserves, taxi fuel, estimated time of departure. So if we put our time of departure in, maybe that's a cool thing that we can do there. All of that looks good. I'm just going to go ahead and leave that the way it is. Let's go to VNAV setup. Transition altitude out of here is 18,000 feet. Cruise altitude is flight level 390. Transition altitude into Denver is flight level 180. All of that looks good. And once we're done with that, I usually go and put this on the progress page. Okay, so that looks pretty good. So definitely what I was looking at over here is you can look at the winds page, and I was kind of skipping over that. So here is wind information. So there is the climb winds, flight level 350, top of climb, OCS. So I can go and get an altitude in here, and I guess I could have popped that in. I'm just not that great at that yet. So that's something that I need to learn and start doing a better job of winds. Now, some of the other payware airplanes, like the Phoenix and the PMDG, that will go out into the world and get those and plug them in for you, which is really pretty cool. All right, I think we are ready to go and start getting ready to get out of here. Let's go ahead and get weather information. Right now I'm offline, so let's go and do KJAC. I'm not on VATSIM, and we're going to hit the METAR button. And here is our latest weather information. Winds are 030 at 5 knots. The altimeter is 3012, and it also says it's overcast here. I do have real world weather going, so that's good. Let's also, while we're here, let's just get Denver weather. Let's just go ahead and grab this, and we're going to put this in our notes. So Control C, and I'm putting these over here just in my notes. So that's all I got to do. That way I just have it in front of me. It takes just an extra second, and now we're good to go. I believe you can also get that information if you're using Volanta. Now then, it's a real small number time here. So the altimeter here is 3012, and that's going to be the barrow down here. So there's the number we're setting, and here's the number we're adjusting. So 3012. And I've got it set up so it set the first officers up, but then you also have to go and just dial it in here for the backup altimeter. 3012, and that's good. Departure heading, real small numbers here. This is a real awkward number to set. So if you look, here is the heading knob over here. So, and if you turn it, this is going to set your heading. And you see there's the heading indicator down there, and it's 007 is our heading off the runway. Perfect for the spy flight. So there's our heading, 007. We're just, there's no SID or star going out, so I'm going to clear us all the way up to flight level 390. That is a small number right here, 390. Okay, so this goes here, 390. Wow, we're flying kind of high today. And there it is. And after you're done, look in and see, oh, it's 39100. So one click there. All right, 39,000 heading 007. All that looks great. All right, what's next? There is another number to set here, and this becomes insanely awkward. So hold, here's my pointer. Hold down the right alternate button Alt button on your keyboard, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to bring this this window up. And all of a sudden you get this ridiculously big sized window now. So, I mean, it's monster size. And so I'm going to resize this. Okay, what we have to do is we have to go and we have to set our landing altitude. That is this little knob up here, and you're setting the landing elevation down here. And the one disadvantage to Denver is all you do is just crank and crank and crank and crank. And this just takes a ridiculous amount of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the magic of editing now. The magic of editing. So we've now set our landing elevation at 5,440 feet. So I got that over here, airport elevation, 5,434. You got to do a little bit of rounding here. And this is just nothing but sit and crank and crank and crank. It's ridiculous. So maybe there's a faster way to do that. I haven't found it. So, you know, not great, not terrible, right? All right. I think we're pretty much ready to go here. Passengers are in their seats. Yep, doors still open here. Cabin's looking pretty nice. And I think it's time for us to go. So we're going to come on down here. Let's go to the aircraft. And we're going to close the cargo and the passenger door. So there goes the passenger door. There goes the the cargo doors. And our airplane is getting buttoned up.
Welcome aboard this flight. We hope you enjoy flying with us. Before takeoff, we would like to encourage all passengers to watch our cabin crew display the safety features of the aircraft.
Disconnect ground power. Okay, so we disconnected ground power. I believe you can go and you can turn off the cabin announcements if you want to. You know, it's nice. This one actually came with cabin announcements, so why get rid of those? We're going to put seatbelts on. The door is closed. We're going to arm the emergency exit lights. Those are good to go too. And it's time to push back. We're going to turn on the beacon. So the beacon is going to go on, come down here. Parking brakes are going to go on. And now you can see we're going to also remove the chocks. And all of that looks good. Now then, I was mentioning a little application called Pushback Helper. This is free at flightsim.to. And it actually, it's outside the simulator. So you have a shortcut on your desktop. And you can come over here and click the tug button. You can also use this to call a Getaway. The reason I'm using this one, there's another one called Toolbar Pushback, and you can preset pushbacks and stuff. The problem is it doesn't play very nicely with some of the other payware airplanes. So that's why I'm using this one right now. And by and large, I've been real happy with it. It works pretty good. So as you can see, our tug is coming up. Watch the tug as it gets closer. It's going to kind of jerk or something there. That sort of it connects itself. Come on. There it is. Did you see how it kind of like it shifted off to the side? That means it's connected. So you can either click this button here. It says parking brake, or you can look down here at your parking brake and click it. There we go. And now we're all ready to just do a straight pushback. And there we go. There's our pushback. How about that? Once you're clear of the gate area, we can go and start up engines. And to do that, boost pumps going on. Boost pumps are on. And let's go ahead and start the left-right engine. Look down here, and we'll look at the N2. That's this one right here. And I believe with this airplane, pretty much an awful lot of airplanes are 20% on the N2 here. So 11, 12, 13, 14. We're doing a pretty good push there. Yep, we're almost back to the crew line. How we doing? And there's 20. And then lift the red lever and push that throttle forward. When the red lever goes down, then just pull it back to idle. And there we go. And there is our crew line right there. So there's our straight push back. Engine is starting up nicely. All right, that looks pretty good. Let's hit stop. And we've stopped there. Come on down, do parking brakes. Parking brakes are on. And then hit the tug button and it'll drive away. And then after that, you can just go ahead and move toolbar pushback off to the side and turn it off.
Pay attention as we display the safety features and procedures of the aircraft in case of an emergency.
Let's start engine number 1.
During an emergency, please remain in your seats with your seatbelts fastened and your seats in the upright position. In case of a drop in cabin pressure, breathing masks will drop from the ceiling and should be placed over your head.
And 2 to 20.
If there is smoke in the cabin during the evacuation of the aircraft, the walkway emergency lights will display to the exits, which are located here and here. In case of an extreme emergency landing, you will be instructed to get into the brace position, which is executed by placing your head between your knees with your hands over your head. We would also like to remind you that you should turn off all electronic devices. We thank you for paying attention during this brief presentation.
Okay, well, we paid attention to the brief presentation, and we're getting a good start on engine number 2. Engine number 1, excuse me. And everything's looking good down here. See, we're not on VATSIM, but we should squawk mode Charlie on the taxiways. So here's the radio. We're set to 2000, and here is how we squawk. We are now squawking. And we're getting a good start on engine number 1. Yep, both of our engines are good. So let's go on up here, and we're going to turn on the window heaters. We're going to turn on the probe heaters. We're going to turn on the packs. I'm going to turn air conditioning on. Everything looks good here. Let's do start, stop, and power and fuel. And we're going to shut down the APU. So APU is shutting down, and everything's great. 3 things need to be turned on now: yaw dampers, mock trim, and stabilizer trim. And if you forget, they're shown in yellow here. They are enunciated in yellow, and those are down here. So stabilizer trim, 2 switches go on, mock trim goes on, yaw dampers go on. And there we go. It's going to show over here that your spoiler stabilizer is in test at this point. Just ignore that. Everything's fine. The last thing to do is go to performance. And down here, you've got a trim for takeoff, 5.7. This is a number that is over here. And if you look, there it is. It's kind of hard to see. It's small numbers like everything. And I've got my trim settings here, so nose down to 5.7 for takeoff. There we go, 5.7. Now flaps, this I believe has 1, 2, 3. We've got 4 flap settings. I'm using the Thrustmaster Airbus stuff. That doesn't work so well for me. So you see, it didn't go quite to 8, and we're doing flaps 8. So I actually have a button set up for flaps. There is flaps 8. There's actually, so there's 5 positions here. Flaps 1, 8, 20, 30. So I just use buttons on this one. And then now we're set to flaps 8. So I'm just using a button on these. The other thing that it's going to want you to set up is your, the last thing, there's a couple of switches here, and these are your thrust reversers. So you turn those on. The spoilers are automatically armed. So we leave them for takeoff. That's a little awkward to see it. So come on up here. So we got 2 of them here. We've got thrust reversers and ground spoilers are set to auto. So that way, if we have to go and reverse thrust and everything else, we're good. And there is our pushback. Boy, did it get dark. I think we just got a weather update, and it's even more overcast than before. All right, come on up here. We're going to do the nose light for taxi. I'm going to ring the bell, let the cabin crew know that we're going to start rolling the airplane around. Feet on the rudder pedals. There's a switch down here, and it's called nose wheel steering, armed. So nose wheel steering is armed. Look down here. Toe brakes on. Parking brakes off. I usually do toe brakes like that so we don't just start rolling around. And it's time to go. This airplane does the really nice hard 90-degree turn here, but you really do need to get the airplane going with some thrust. Otherwise, it just kind of slows down. And there we go. Out we go. And a nice gentle turn out there. And here's our taxiway. And we got a nice little clip. Let's see, do we have ground speed indicated here? There should be a ground speed. Oh, if it's there, I don't see it right now. Saturated. Ground speed, 18 knots. Boy, we're moving along pretty good. It was a small little number right there. So my ground speed's 19 knots. Oh, we're going way too fast. Let's go back to thrust idle. But, hey, we're also getting out of the gate a little late right now, so... Okay, we're not slowing down. Once you get this airplane going...
Ladies and gentlemen, the captain has advised that we are now cleared for takeoff. Please notice the cabin lights have been turned off, as this is a normal procedure for a nighttime takeoff.
Now, so a little bit of braking here. And we got 2 entries over here. Let's just go ahead and grab this one. We're a CRJ. There's our hold short point. And stop. Okay, I think we're ready to go. Thrust reversers are set. Auto brakes, speed brakes are armed. There are no auto brakes here. We are squawking mode Charlie. Passengers are in their seats. I think it's flying time. So strobes, because we're cleared onto a runway. And let's go ahead. Out we go. Add a little bit of power. Last thing, we do the X-Flow Auto Override button. Cross-Flow Auto Override for takeoff. Out we go onto our runway. It's really dark, so I'm just following my little yellow line there out onto the runway. Up, it says runway 1. Ooh, it's a little frosty out there. We need to be ready for wing and engine anti-ice, I think. Okay, nicely lined up. So we're good and lined up there. Landing lights. Landing lights are on. Throttle's up to about 30-40%. And looks like the engines are stable. Okay, let's hit the toga button on this one. Sometimes on a bumpy runway, I'll do a little bit of nose down, just to keep it from bouncing around too much. There's 100 knots. Very hard to see those little numbers down there. And there is V1 and rotate. Positive rate. Landing gear. Let's start a turn. And we're going to go to our first little checkpoint in the sky. I neglected to turn on my flight director. Bad pilot here. Climbing a little bit too much. Speed's coming up nicely. A notch of flaps. Turning a little too sharp.
Don't sink.
I'm not sinking, but our speed's not coming up too much. There we go. That's looking pretty good.
Pull up.
We do have some hills out here to be careful of. There's the airport. There's our nice little valley. We'll just come right on back down the valley here. How's our climb? Doing pretty good. There's 10,000 feet. I'm going to leave landing lights on just a little bit longer here. And there's our first checkpoint. So we're going to get to fly right back over the runway. Okay, looking pretty good. Now let's look down here. Let's do a direct to. So direct intersection, Kissen. Execute that. Come on up here. We're going to do nav, speed, AP engage. Autopilot is engaged. Thank you, Captain Picard. And now I'm going to kick my speed up to 250. Now this airplane does not have an auto throttle. So what we're doing is we're using speed to manage our climb. So if we start going a little fast, it'll climb us a little bit faster. And our speed's coming up, and we can do flaps up. Flaps are going up. While we're doing that, we're going to go ahead and turn off the thrust reversers. We don't need those. And what is it cautioning me about? Oh, manual crossflow. Turn that off. It says that ice is detected. I'm going to turn on my anti-ice around the engines. Now then, there's another thing that you can do. If you see the heading button, what you do is right-click and then left-click. And that's how you push buttons on this airplane. And what that does is that syncs my heading, my manual heading up with this.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are now serving sandwiches.
And at 15,000 feet on most of the CRJs, at 15,000, they start serving sandwiches. And there we go, a nice departure. So we're direct kissing. We are at 250 knots. Now we're past 10,000 feet, so we can speed it up a little bit. I generally like to speed it up to about 280 for a climb. So there's a small number right down there, 280. So it's going to drop the nose a little bit and speed us up and hold us 280 knots in the climb. Looking down here, ice is on, so it's still showing that we've got some ice. We're also clear of the clouds. You can see that we've got stars out there right now. Oh, it looks like we got the Little Dipper in front of us. And yes, that is one of the cool things about Microsoft Flight Simulator is, yes, indeed, you can do celestial navigation. The stars at night are big and bright, not only deep in the heart of Texas, but here in Flight Simulator. And you can go and you can do celestial navigation. Okay, let's go here, and we're going to, again, it's a right click in the center of this button. So you see it's flashing to say 18,000 feet. So right click, left click, and there's the barrel button. And now we're set to standard. Over here on the backup, we have a STD button. So we'll hit the standard button there, 2992. Altimeters are set. Let's see, we're well past. So we're going to go ahead and do all of our lights off. 10,000 feet. I left them on as we're flying over the top of the airport. And we're at 20. And looking pretty good. We look back into the cabin. We've got the door closed. So the thing about this cabin is they've added a nice little first class snack area. So while the flight attendant's back with the little drink trolley back in steerage, they basically, first class can go up and get more snacks, I guess, if they want. The other thing that they added in this airplane are these big bins here for carry-ons. So a lot of people can do their carry-ons. The first 4 rows are Economy Plus. The rest of it is basic steerage. And then there is one of the smallest lavatories in the world. Adults of any size. And there we go. So there's our cabin, all nice. They did a good job. So again, this is the 550 is the version I'm flying. You can also do the 700. So I call those the sardines. And we have a pretty nice galley up here too. I don't notice that there's anything over in the coffee machine area though. So there we go. And there we are at Kissen. And we're doing our turn. So I'm going to go over here. So my map is set to 20 and 40. The map range is this knob here. I usually like to kick my map up to about 80 on this. And then again, we're going to do the right click, left click as soon as we're done with our turn. So it's turning us to our next checkpoint. And sometimes it's a little sloppy on the turn on this airplane, but it's not too bad. And we're starting to get a little bit of sun on the horizon there. So it should be an incredible arrival into Denver. Once it gets itself established, we'll go ahead and reset the heading bug, which I usually do. And then as we look down here, you can see that our legs are in good. I like to leave this over here in progress. We are 357 miles from Denver. Our estimated flying time is about 47 minutes. And we're pretty well established on our heading now for our next checkpoint. So look up here, right click in the center of the heading bug, left click, and our heading bug is now set straight up. We're passing 28,000 feet, going to flight level 390 for today's flight. And over here on flight tracking, we're done with the airport, and you can see there we are. Going to go over Rock Springs, the Mary Jane ski area here in Colorado, coming in north of Boulder, south of Fort Collins, and straight down into DIA. So a very nice approach in here. I am notoriously bad for forgetting to hit my chronometer button. I need to be better about that, and I constantly forget that. All right, everything's looking good here. One of the pages that you might use if we're flying on VATSIM, it's so easy to change your frequencies. Just type it in here. And so this is what I use for the radios. That's a really nice way to go ahead and do that. You can also change your squawk code down here. So 2007, we just got a squawk change. There you go. That's how easy that is. Generally, though, I leave this one on progress. You could also go and generally this is my FMC view. You could also go and set this one too. So, you know, you might have this one on legs over here or flight plan. So we could go to legs over on this one if we need to go and make some changes. So you can go ahead and run them that way. I'm running both FMCs on things like the PMDG 737 and also the Phoenix A320. I haven't done that much with this airplane, but this is really stable. This is a good jet, especially if you want to start learning jets. Nothing really to do down here. You can go and you can run through the ECAM settings. So we're on the primary and the status. You can look at hydraulics, electronics, and fuel. It's a little bit awkward, so you click it down here, and then that screen changes up there. It does say that the CAL anti-ice is on. We're clear of all of the clouds. Let's see if we can turn it off. And there's your ice detector, and ice is not detected, so we're good to go there. We are past 32,000 feet. It's nice and calm. Let's go ahead and do seatbelts to off so that people can go and get in the ridiculously small bathroom in the back of the airplane. Okay, now after passing 31,000 feet, it's shifted us over to Mach, and it's going to maintain Mach 0.77. One of the things that I've forgotten to do is pull my throttles back from takeoff to climb. Forgot to do that. I do that on this airplane all the time. I'm using the Thrustmaster Airbus controls, and basically my Airbus controls are set up in Airbus configuration. So even though in this airplane thrust reversers are going to operate a little differently than reversers in, say, an Airbus, you know, lifting the two little Airbus levers and pulling them back is how I do thrust reverse, and it works really good. So I don't have to make too many control check. In fact, I have no control setting changes between this airplane and, say, the Phoenix A320 or the fly-by-wire. Both of those, all three of these, work really good with the same control settings. Passing 33,000 feet. APU door is closed. The rudder's good. Fuel is looking good too. And in fact, one of the things to do is right now in Denver, the airplane is estimating we're going to have 1.6 kgs of fuel. So over here on your fuel planning on the flight plan, if you look down here, I look at this line here, final reserve and alternate fuel. That's when I start to get worried about fuel. And for me, if we go below 1.265 on that, that means we've gone into final reserve and alternate fuel. And that probably means an angry memo from the boss. I boarded an extra 30 minutes of fuel. So that's why it's a little bit more. So 1680, we're in really good shape right now. If we had to divert or something, we got plenty of diversion. If it's a busy day in Denver, we could do a hold, and we're good. And final reserve and all of those fuel numbers, it's really pretty simple. If you look over here, the top line here, this is trip fuel. And so my fuel is 1552. Now then, we also have a couple of other numbers here. Here is contingency fuel, 381. So that's an additional, 15 minutes of fuel. Our alternate fuel to get to our final alternate here to Colorado Springs, 659. Final reserve, that's sort of like a 30-minute amount. There's 30 minutes of fuel. So here's 15 minutes of extra fuel. Here's 30 minutes of extra fuel. And if you look at these three numbers, so 381, 659, 606, that all adds up to final reserve and alternate. And it's pretty much the same with every airplane. Those are those three numbers. You put all those together, that's your final reserve of fuel. And that's how you know whether or not you're going to be in good shape. So if we had to, I could hold for 30 minutes. And then I would still have 15 minutes of extra fuel to play with on top of the amount of fuel that I need to get down to Colorado Springs. So fuel is, that's how we go and make sure that we've got enough gas. And how are we doing here? We're coming up on 37,000 feet. We're climbing at Mach 0.77. We're climbing at about 800, 900 feet per minute. As we get a little higher, the climb is a little bit less, but we're in good shape. There's two alternate ways of doing decision heights. So you can either do what's known as barrow. That's me, you put in an altitude, above sea level, or a decision height, how many feet above the runway. This is one of those numbers like you saw when I was setting the landing elevation. So going into Denver, that is a ridiculously big number because Denver is 5,000 feet above sea level. Holy moly. So you could sit here and you can crank forever on this little knob here. So we could crank forever here, or you could just use decision height. So on our approach for our decision height, if we look down here, I could either crank in 5,526 feet, that's just sit and spin the knob, or I could put in 200. Gee, what do you think's the easiest thing to do on this airplane? So let's look over here, and I'm going to push the little button in, and I'm just going to turn. See how his decision height is now popped up? I'm just going to put in 200 there, as opposed to, cranking it all the way up to 5,000 feet. Might not be the correct way to do it, but it's what works for me as opposed to me just wanting to sit and crank numbers. We're also approaching our final cruising altitude. So this is when all of a sudden you get busy. Okay, decision height is set going into Denver. Cool, we fixed that. And here we come to our final cruise of right around 39,000 feet. We're already going at Mach 0.77. So as we settle into our cruise here, altitude cap is flapping at us, flashing at us. And then what we'll have to do is then your job is there's no auto throttle. You have to have your hands on the throttle. From what I understand, CRJ pilots, hands on the throttle the whole flight. So we're still at Mach 0.77. As we settle on into our final cruise, you're going to start to notice, and you'll see this thing is starting to creep a little bit here. We're starting to go up a bit. So what we're going to do is, right now the airplane is in climb thrust. I'm going to slide it back just a little bit. And now we're in manual thrust. And if you look up over here, so now we're at about 85. I'm going to go to about, let's go to 84% on the N2. Now my throttles, okay, we're going to be at 83.3. And then what we do is we look and see what's going on here. Are we increasing our speed or slowing down? And that's what you do, is you monitor that. So right now we're at Mach 0.77. And it doesn't look like we're doing, like we're speeding up, so we're in pretty good shape here. Not bad. Let's go down here and let's see, we've got this thing says MFD data, and then if you look up here, it changes this screen over and it says top of descent, 157 miles in about 13 minutes. So that's pretty cool. So let's go back and turn off MFD data again. And if we look in here, we're going to see a top of descent indicator show up in there. It says we're 9 minutes away from Mary Jane. That's the beginning of the star. So how are we doing? Are we picking up speed? Nope, we're pretty much holding. So we're at Mach 0.77. We're in good shape. At this point in time, if we were on VATSIM, our controller might say that we are clear to descend via the Flatiron 3 arrival, Mary Jane transition, Denver landing south. That's what they would probably say to us. What that means is, if Denver is landing south, so we think we're expecting 16s, that's going to be over here at Tichenor. And see where it says an altitude of 13,000 feet and 210 knots? At that point in time, when ATC has said that, we are cleared to descend at our discretion, meeting these constraints, staying within these spots here, to 13,000 feet. So if ATC has already said that, well, we've got 39,000 feet here, so we can come over here to the altitude, and I'm going to crank in 13,000 feet. No, 11,000 feet. Nope. Oh, Tichenor is 13. I thought it was 11. It's 13 now. That must be a change. So 13,000 feet at Tichenor. It's really hard to read this number here. Really hard to read it. Let's go look at the legs and see if that's what it says here. So Mary Jane, Hippie, Bob Cove, Flatiron. We got a speed reduction here at Eldo. Tichenor, 13,000. I thought it was 11. I thought it was 11. They must have changed that. Now, we're not descending yet. We're going to wait for that top of descent to show up. And if you look carefully, we are starting to slowly creep up here. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to ever so slightly move my throttles down to 83.1. That's about as close as you can get. And I think that maybe that's going to keep us pretty close to our bugged speed. Okay, so this is looking good. Outside, oh my gosh, we got a nice sunrise into Denver. A really cool little airplane. We got some nice views coming up here. 'Tis the season to start looking out in Microsoft Flight Simulator to see a little bit of snow. 'Tis the season to start looking for snow in Microsoft Flight Simulator. And I've noticed it's pretty accurate. So let's see, we're coming into Rock Springs and Green River. So you saw that there was some lights over here as we were looking out. Those are the lights of that road. Go ahead and look back down again. So, hey, Rock Springs. There's Rock Springs. Hi, Rock Springs. A real party town, I'm sure. Okay. And I shouldn't be so sarcastic. It's probably a very nice place. Okay, so coming into Rock Springs, this I believe is the Mary Jane waypoint. Yep. So that's the Mary Jane ski area. There's Steamboat over there. I think that's the Mary Jane ski area. It's been a long time since I did skiing in Colorado. Laramie and Cheyenne, Wyoming. We're going to come in between Boulder and Fort Collins. And then there's Greeley. So we'll really probably see some great lighting coming into Denver. And we're going to make a bit of a turn here. How are we doing in terms of our top of descent? Go back to MFD data. We are, it says 123 miles to top of descent, so we still got a ways to go. It says 1346. So it's 1328 Zulu. Yep, so, okay, not bad. It also says that we're going to be getting in progress, so 31 minutes of flying time. And our fuel hasn't changed. We're still great in fuel. Airplane's making that turn to Mary Jane. So after we do the turn, I'm going to right-click, left-click on the heading bug, and we are good to go. The airplane should already know what our arrival is going to be. As long as nav1 is set into auto mode, it's going to auto-tune the radios for us, which is really nice. So that should set us up just fine. If it's not auto-tuning, there's either a problem with scenery or you've got it set to manual. Okay, let's go ahead and do it again. Right-click in the center and left-click. Okay, our speed is now dropped down just a little bit. So we're now down below our bug. So let's go ahead and just goose these things up a little bit. So there's our N2. I'm going to reach down for the throttles and touch them barely. 83.8. Let's see what that does for us. And the sun is just coming up. Yeah, and that looks good. So there we go. Yeah, everything's in pretty good shape right now. Over here, all of this looks good. So nothing to worry about there. I think we're in pretty good shape. So as the sun continues to come up here, let's also do the magic of editing. And as soon as we get about 20 miles away from our top of descent, so you can go and hit pause on your video if you're flying with me. And when you're 20 miles from the top of descent, start the video again. Hey, welcome back. Of course, it's been just seconds for you, but it was about 10 minutes for me, and we are hitting about 20 minutes from our top of descent. As the CRJ continues to make its way in, sun is definitely coming up right now. And as we look out the window, I was mentioning snow. Hey, look at that, some snow in Colorado. So this is really, the beginning of, almost ski season. So let the ski fun begin. Top of descent is closer than ever before. The only thing that I've really done is refresh my cup of coffee here. I did check to see if there was a new METAR for coming into Denver. We're getting close to the top of the hour here, so another METAR is coming in, but right now the METAR that we have at the moment is really pretty good. Come on over to MFD data, and we can look and see top of descent is 7 miles away. So this gives us a mileage counter to let us know exactly when we're going to hit top of descent. I usually try and start my descent somewhere between 1 and 3-4 miles away from a top of descent. That usually makes for a nice, calm little transition to a descent here. And all we've got to do to start the descent on this airplane is we're going to hit the speed button and maybe pull the throttles back just a little. So 3.8, 3.7, I think that's close enough. So we're going to turn this back over to normal. That looks good. Come on up here, and I'm going to hit the speed button, and I'm going to roll my throttle back just a touch. Not much, just enough to get the descent started. As we get closer to top of descent, you're going to notice a couple of things that shows up here. There's going to be a blue dot down here, and there's going to be a snowflake that shows up over here. We're going down a little fast, so about 1,000 feet per minute. There it is. So now here's the snowflake or the blue dot, and now all you do is with your throttles, you go and chase those little indicators there. So I just pulled my throttle back a little more, try and keep the little snowflake centered here. So it's two indicators there as far as how it is you're doing on your descent. Just pull it back a little bit more. Okay, that's pretty good. Relatively good, maybe just another touch on the throttles. And I'm making just very, very small movements on the throttles here. And so here we go. Our descent is good. VNAV is a little bit questionable on this thing. It's not going to be VNAV like you're used to in a Boeing or an Airbus. So you kind of have to manage that as you go on down. Another thing that you can do to help you manage those, especially if you're in a big VATSIM event, is go over to your chart and see where you are. Okay, so we're over here, Mary Jane. So we're supposed to be above 27,000 feet at Hippie. And I think we're going to do that. We're at 39,000 feet. And so, yeah, there's Hippie right there. Let's go ahead. And now as we're getting, and it's getting a little cluttered in the map, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do a real quick click back there. We have a traffic button we can turn on. So there's a traffic button over there. I don't know if that works. We also have terrain radar. So I'm also going to turn on the terrain radar because we've got some hills coming into Denver. How are we doing here? We're really close to snowflake. I feel like if I can keep the snowflake between the top, the two indicators here, I'm in pretty good shape. We're in great shape. Okay, so coming up on Hippie, we just passed Hippie. We're above 27,000 feet. We're in good shape on our descent. Basically, I feel like the snowflake keeps you in your descent profile and helps you manage your altitude as far as constraints. Now, speed, you're on your own. So over here for speed, there we are at Hippie. So we do have a speed restriction here at Eldo. We got to be at 250 knots. So we got to be ready for that speed restriction there at Eldo. Everything else is in pretty good shape here. Generally for seatbelts, 25,000 feet is my magic number, unless there's turbulence or something like that. If we're bouncing around and all this other stuff, I will usually turn on the seatbelt sign, of course, but until then, I leave it off until 25,000 feet. Shirley, I just called you Shirley. There's got to be somebody back there in the cabin who had too much coffee, and we're not here to be that mean. By the way, that's one of those things that you learn. It only takes one time to learn. But cabin's looking really pretty nice here. I will tell you that probably one of the best designed cabins I've seen, though, is the Phoenix cabin. Holy moly, that is a great cabin. Wow, is that nice. Okay, so 31,000 feet, my little snowflake is centered. Let's come on over here, and everything's looking good. I'm over on the performance page. Some buttons I'm going to be putting out here. I will be hitting set all in a little bit for landing speeds, and as we get turn to final, then I'll set the VREF speed. So all of those are good to go. So we're coming up on Folsom. Okay, we're starting to get a little bit high on the snowflake. So I'm going to go ahead and pull my throttle back just a little bit. And now you can also see we passed 31,000 feet. It's now put me into airspeed mode. So now I'm going to go and start dialing that speed back a little bit. And I'm going to dial it back right now to 280 to come on in. So 280 is what I'm going to do here. We're still a little fast, a little high, I mean. So I'm going to roll my throttle back a bit more. And this is not something that you have to do immediately. It's not instant. You have to be right here at a certain thing. Just gentle motions on that throttle are best with this airplane. I'm also going to keep my heading bug centered. We're good to go there. And we're coming up on Bobco. The next one after Bobco is Flatiron. Flatiron, we have to be between flight level 220 and 190. Okay, we're still a little high here, so I'm going to roll my throttle back a little bit more. And again, I mean, we're at 68%, and I'm just making baby motions. Just little baby motions on these things. Now we're centered up there. That looks good. 28,000 feet. Captain at this point saying, hey, folks, you probably noticed we've started our descent into Denver. We're going to be turning the seatbelt sign on in about another 5 minutes, so if you've got a last-minute trip to the bathroom, now's the time to do that. Right now, Denver's looking pretty nice. We've got 10 miles visibility. Winds are out of the south at about 9 knots, so it should be a fairly nice landing. It's a bit chilly in Denver. Right now, it's about 40 degrees. We should be having you at the gate for an on-time arrival here. As always, we'd like to say thank you for flying. And for those of you that think it's okay to do that, we'd also like to invite you to not put your dirty baby diapers in the seat pocket in front of you. Thanks. Yes, I have found that once. I realize it's also inconvenient for families with kids, but you don't have to leave them there. Come on. Okay, there's 25,600. That is close enough. So it is seatbelt time. Seatbelts are over here. We're going to turn those on. And now we're coming up on the front range of Colorado, too. So I bet we've got, yep, there's a little bit of snow over back over on the Continental Divide. So snow is starting to show up. It's really kind of cool if you can go, and you can do this with either Navigraph or Sim Toolkit Pro or something like that as you're coming in. One of the neat things is the scenery is so cool. You basically get to use your moving map like this, and you get to be a virtual tourist. Definitely one of the cooler things to do with Microsoft Flight Simulator is just getting to go and look around and see, because the scenery is so good. Okay, ups. And so I was looking outside too much, and now we're way high, so I'm going to move my throttles back another touch. Okay, we're also coming up on Flatiron here. We're looking good at Flatiron, but we have a slowdown now at Eldo. That's next. So I'm going to roll my throttles back even more. In fact, now I'm at thrust idle, and we're going to roll the speed back to 250. So speed's going back to 250, so we don't get a speeding ticket. And now it's going to reduce our speed. I'm also going to reduce my map a click. So we just passed Flatiron. At Eldo, we have to be between 16,000 and 21,000 feet. Hey, we're going to make that the altitude constraint perfectly. And we're doing really good as far as getting our speed down. So we're going to hit that speed restriction, and we're good to go there. After that, our next speed restriction is going to be 210 knots at Be Done. And we're still slowing down. We're doing good. So we're about 8 miles from Eldo. We're going to make that, we're at 250 knots easy. Now then, as soon as we do hit the speed restriction, okay, no auto throttle on this airplane. So it's important to watch that speed and watch the little star there. Watch our snowflake as we get closer. So we're going to have to increase throttle a little bit here. So right now my throttles are at idle. But let's wait and see. Now, there we go. We're at about 250 knots. And we'll start to see, I think that thing's going to start to pop up a little bit there. I said that thing's going to start to pop up there. Don't make me a liar, Jeez, these airplanes. And of course, the hard part is now all of a sudden, I'm going to go and look around, do other things. And then all of a sudden I'll look down and, oh, we're going too slow. Oh, we're too high. Ooh, 18,000 feet. altimeter time. So this is what gets you. Altimeter is 3002. 3002 over here. There we go, 3002. How are we doing here? And it's flashing at us, so barrel button, right click and push it, and then adjust it. 3002. There we go. Hey, and look at that. See the stars now coming back up again? So let's add a little bit of throttle. We don't want to get too slow. Okay, and we got another speed restriction coming up in about 10 miles. Up, and we added too much throttle, so now we're high. So we'll just stay at thrust idle. But we also need, now it's really coming up fast. So let's go ahead and, it's time to start reducing our speed to 210 knots. One of the strategies that I have for this airplane is to just do little speed reductions. So I only dropped it down to 210 knots here. We're still a tad bit high, but there's our speed down. So I'll drop it down by 10 knot increments was what I was trying to say. So that should kind of help us. But if you're still high, you might have to go out and throw out some speed brake. So there's a little bit of speed brake. Let's see if that's helping. Oh, that helped a lot. Now all of a sudden we're a bit too low. So let's go ahead and do the speed restriction down to 210. We're just going to drop it all the way down to 210 now. How we doing? See, now all of a sudden we caught up. So it's not exact science time here. Not bad. Okay, right click, left click in the center of the heading bug. Get that set up. I'm going to also do my map range a click. And we're going to hit 210 knots. It'd be done just fine. So all of this is looking good. Now then, we're coming to the end of the star. 13,000 feet here at Tichenor. After Tichenor, we come on over here. And at Tichenor, it's 13,000 feet. And then at Shred, it's a mandatory 10,000 feet. So that's going to be our next descent point. And what we can do is, let's go ahead and, ATC just called, said, continue your descent down to 10,000 feet. So let's go ahead and just continue the descent, and I'm going to move that down to 10,000 feet. Okay, and it's hard to see, it's a small number, but we'll continue our descent to 10,000 feet. Ooh, it looks like we're slowing down a little bit. We're a little bit low now, so I'm going to add some power here. Not too much, just a little. You see, all of a sudden our descent's coming up, and we want up. Now all of a sudden it's going down again. So we'll just try and keep that centered. There we go. Nice descent. 210 knots, perfect. And placarded speeds, if you look over here. So what can we do for flaps? So flaps 1 is 230 knots. Flaps 8 is 230 knots, and flaps 20 are the placards. So let's go ahead and we can do a couple clicks on flaps here. So I'm going to do 2. I'm going to go to flaps 8. And there's flaps 8. And we're a little touch low, so we're going to add just a little more throttle. And we're flaps 8. As we get in a little bit closer, let's go ahead and be ready, the spoilers. So we have disarm and auto. I'm going to put that in auto, and I'm going to go ahead and arm my thrust reversers. I'm getting this done a little bit early from the real airplane, and it beeped at me. What didn't it like? Probably because I turned that off. Now let's also go here, and I'm going to go and hit this button here. So this is going to set some bugs. V2, VT, so that's going to just set a couple of bugs there. Now here's our turn over from Tichenor, and it's 10,000 feet to Shred. We're a little bit high, so pull the throttles back just a bit more. There's Shred right there, so we have to be at 10,000 feet there. And a beautiful day in Denver. Uh-oh, crop circles. Those are where flying saucers land. I'm not 100% sure that might be Pikes Peak. down over Colorado Springs. On a clear day, absolutely. It's a 14,000 foot peak. So you should be able to see. Okay, we're also set here. Right click, left click over on our heading bug. That looks good too. And we're about ready to make our turn over to from SkimJ. Let's also pull the throttle back a little bit more. And we're looking pretty good. And you can see the little altitude banana is right over Shred. So we're gonna be at 10,000 feet at Shred. Air traffic control just called and said we are cleared for the ILS runway 16 right, 180 knots until Jetson. So what they mean when you get that from there, so we're coming in here. So that means we have to keep our speed up to 180 knots to Jetson, which is 10 miles from the runway. Other airports, sometimes like at Chicago, it's 5 miles from the runway. So we're looking pretty good there. I'm going to go ahead and thrust idle, and let's start running that speed down to 180. 180. And if we're cleared for the ILS, let's go ahead and continue to get some help from the approach. I'm going to go down to 7,000 feet. So we're going to continue to let the airplane do the work for us. There's 7,000 feet. So it's going to continue our descent. We're a little fast. That's okay. We can also do another notch of flaps. So now we are at flaps 20. 180 knots. There's 10,000 feet. Landing lights. Nose light. Ring the bell. Let the cabin crew know we are getting ready to land. And that 7,000 feet is supposed to be at Jetson. So you can see right now that we're going to be at 7,000 feet at Newland. So let's add a little bit of power here and try and get this little line right on top of Jetson there. And that's going to be a perfect setup for landing. So 7,000 feet, that looks good. Reset the heading bug. That looks good too. Okay, now we got a little indicator here. See where localizer 1 is now blue? So at this point in time, we're going to go over here and I'm going to right click, left click, reset my heading bug, and now I'm going to go to heading mode. Now we got another button we can do here. And let's go down here, see where it says nav source. I'm going to do it one click. And it says localizer. We now have glide slope and localizer. So let's come over here and I'm going to hit the approach button. That's going to get me centered up on the localizer and capture the glide slope. So let's add a little bit of power here because I want to get the line past Jetson so it can snag the localizer and help us out. So we'll add some power. Not a lot, just little touches of power on this airplane. Now we got a second here. We're going to go ahead and do a very, very quick brief on the arrival. 16 right. We are going to hope for Delta 5, Whiskey Bravo. After Whiskey Bravo, Golf to the south side. Our parking gate is on the south side. It's B46. So I've already got this set up, so I'm going to be able to look over here and see there is my exit. That's how we hope we're going to do this. Okay, how we doing? And we're doing pretty good there. I'm going to add a little bit more power. We're still holding 180. And now you see the little banana line is getting past Jetson. That means we're going to go ahead and this thing, we should start to get closer to the glide slope now. And everything's looking good. I say wheels. So wheels might be a good thing to do. So landing gear. I bet real pilots wish they could do this. Okay, looking good. Gear is down. Okay, our glide slope is starting to drop a little bit, but we could add a little bit more power here. Again, I want to get the little banana line beyond Jetson. That means we're descending a little bit slower, and that's going to be good for us, which means that's going to help the airplane capture that glide slope a little bit sooner. I'm not going to speed up too much, but. And we are coming up on 10-mile finals. And at Jetson, that's when we can go ahead and slow down to our landing speed. Okay, we're starting to get close. Here comes the glide slope, so it's going to start to capture that for us. And now's a good time, you know, over on Twitch, how they will say, you know, people that are watching can remind people live streaming to do a posture check and to hydrate. Now's the time to do that. Okay, we just captured the glide slope. Go ahead and roll that throttle back a little bit. And now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to set my VREF speed. And that's going to help me slow the airplane down. So we're going to start to slow it down. I'm pulling my throttle back. I'm still letting this airplane work for me right now. If you're on VATSIM right now, at this point you'd be talking to tower. This is a moment where you have a second. See if you've got a second and you know that there's ground control. Now's a great time to go and set up for ground. Put that frequency in. Okay, here's our speed coming down. I'm not letting it slow down too much. We're about 5-mile finals. Looking good. Sitting back. We're slowly getting established here. Another notch of flaps.
1,000.
Again, VREF speed, it's going to try and do 127. Let's call it 130. Flaps are full. A little more throttle. AP is off. Captain's got the airplane. There's 130 knots, a little more power. Those are very small numbers to read. But this airplane gets super duper wobbly if you let it get too slow. Okay, got a little bit of a breeze from the right, so it's blowing me to the left.
400. $300.
130 knots. Almost perfect.
200.
Landing.
Minimums.
Landing. So I got 2 minimums calls today. Sometime. Oh, I got another minimums call.
Minimums. 50.
Landing long, but I'm going for some butter here.
30. 20. 10.
Reverse. And reverse thrust. Not a lot. I'm not doing a massive slowdown. Okay, there's the Delta 8 taxiway. 60 knots. Stow the thrust reversers. No auto brakes, so I'm kind of coasting now. Speed brakes did not auto deploy. Maybe they deployed with the thrust reversers. Okay, now we're coming up. Next available left is Delta 5. I'm going to start doing a little bit of braking here. It's a high speed. And a gentle turn off the runway. Welcome to Denver. You hear the clicking, that's my flaps going up. Let's also go over here, landing lights going off. And we're off the runway. Strobes. Getting out of the way fast. Denver's a busy airport about this time. If you go and look at Flight Radar 24 right now, it gets definitely busy. So off the runway quick. Don't need those logo lights.
Please remain seated until the aircraft
Power
is
and fuel for the APU. And we're we're doing a nice gentle taxi. And if you look out the side window, if you've been a passenger, I mean, this really is what it looks like, right? So if you look down here, you can see our taxi speed. Ground speed right now is about 24 knots. So a little more braking here. And if we look over here, here's a turn. Let's see, the APU door is open, so we're going to start up the APU. Let's see, we're going to turn off probe heaters. And remember, we're going to go for taxiway Golf. That's the second one, because we're on the south side of the Bravo here. APU should be up and running, so we're good to go with a power down there. Okay, so there's Foxtrot. Next available right. Now this is a 90-degree turn, so you want your speed to drop down even more. And that area there would be full of snow removal gear. All right, we're looking for Bravo Sierra. That's going to be our next available left, and you can already see the taxiway markings. This is one of the nice parts about the payware airports, is you know you can kind of count on the taxiway markings and everything else. Now we're starting to slow down a bit. This airplane, once you start to slow down, will just come to a stop, especially here where it's not entirely level. And there we go. Okay, so gate number B46 is 1, 2, 3, 4 gates down from the big center area. So there's the big central part of the Denver concourse here, picking up some speed. So let's go back to thrust idle. And if you look, so it's going to be right beyond the. So if you look here at Denver, you've got this area here. So that's going to be one of the mini food courts. But over here in the Bravo concourse over here, that's going to be one of the United clubs over there. So we're going to go just beyond the East Side United Club. Should be our gate. Add a little bit of braking here. There's the big center area. So that's where you go to get on the trains if you're going over to the central terminal. Slowing it down even more. Ground speed's about 14 knots now. So those are the areas where they park the really big jets. So the 787s and the 777s will be over in these two spots. There's the United Club right there. And there should be our gate. So that should be 44. That should be 46. Should be. Little tap on the brake here. And if we look at the paint on the ground, it says, oh my gosh, Bravo 46, imagine that. Start our turn over here. Almost looks like a CRJ parking. Now the real flight is an E174 or an E175, I believe. Now there's no gate guidance going in, so the best thing that you can do is at this point you pop out of the airplane so that you can kind of see where everything is. And that looks like a good spot right about there. Looking good, so parking brakes are on. We already have the APU up. Sometimes grabbing these is a little awkward. Stop squawking. So mode Charlie's going off. Come on up here. Seatbelt's going off. Emergency exit's going off. nose light, beacon, all the lights are good to go. Fuel pumps can go off too. Let's also turn off the windshield for the moment. We'll come down here, go to aircraft, chocks in place, open up the doors. I'm also going to hit the, I'm also going to put down the guardrails so you can see that my door's open and the guardrails are down. Remember pushback helper? Let's go get pushback helper. Come on over here and hit jetway. And here comes our jetway. You'll open the door on this airplane before the jetway's in place. And then if you come over and look in here, you can see the jetway coming up to the airplane. And at that point in time, this airplane will just start deboarding your passengers. So everything looks good. How about that? Last thing that I usually like to do is come over and look at the gas gauge. So how do we do in terms of gas? My total fuel is 1710. So the last thing that I want to do is look over here. I should have had 1265. Remember, I boarded an extra 30 minutes of fuel, so that's about 600. I'd say that our fuel was spot on for today's flight. And so if you were able to go and get all that taken care of, oh, we should have disarmed these things and disarmed that. Great. Now the airplane is good. Passengers are getting off the airplane. And there we go. It's time to walk through the terminal and go and get a very, very expensive cup of coffee. Like I've been saying, this is an incredibly good jet if you are wanting to go and do, if you're just starting in flight sim and you've been doing the propeller airplanes and the turbos, and now you're ready to go into jets, the Aerosoft CRJs are absolutely really, really good airplanes. I hope this helped you out a little bit. As I always like to say on the YouTube videos, this is never about the right way versus the wrong way. This is about what works for me. Please leave some questions and comments. I'm still really new here on YouTube, so I'm at the stage where I'm reading all the comments. And if you've got a flight that you'd like to see me do over here, please let me know. Definitely want to do the kinds of flights that you'd like to see over on YouTube as I try and grow the Spy Flight over on YouTube. Of course, I also like to say a big welcome. Come on over and fly with us. They're all group flights over on Twitch. The community over there is just absolutely really cool people. There's some real knowledgeable people. We've got real world airline pilots that come and fly with us too. And it just absolutely makes the day for sure. I'm Dave. Thank you so much for flying with me. I appreciate it. I'm still new here on YouTube, so if you liked what you saw, big thanks to donors on Ko-fi and Patreon. If you're not on those two, but you want to show a little love and support, head on over to the Spy Flight on Twitch. You can do a gift sub or two. That might be nice too. In the meantime, I'm going to be doing a special Halloween flight later today on Twitch. We're also going to be flying Tuesday through Sunday. I will look forward to seeing you then. As always, though, stay healthy, stay safe. We'll see you real soon on Twitch and pretty quickly here on YouTube. Cheers.